Another story in Israel, not as emotional, but, the mummy will argue. The Israel Museum is playing host to the only artifact of its kind in the country, a 2,200-year-old Egyptian mummy. A CT scan revealed that the mummy is likely the remains of a once affluent man who led an idle life and ate a lot of carbohydrates and suffered from osteoporosis, kind of like all of us, I would say, and probably had bad teeth. The mummy was kept for decades at an institute in Jerusalem until it was lent to the museum. Let's take a look first at the following report by I-24 News editor Maya Margit. Then meet the woman who met the mummy in person.
It's a dark and cool room, and in it lies Israel's only mummy. Nicknamed Alex, the 2,200-year-old relic is on display for the first time at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. A gift from the Jesuits in Alexandria over 80 years ago. For decades it was kept under wraps at the Pontifical Biblical Institute in Jerusalem. Thanks to a dry climate and a dark environment, the mummy was exceedingly well preserved.
This mummy is in excellent condition, which means that most of its internal parts are intact. Because of this, we were able to discover who the man inside had been.
And this is what they discovered. The deceased was 30 to 40 years old at the time of his death and was a wealthy priest known as Iret Horiru, or the protective eye of Horus. He was from Achmim, an important city in ancient Egypt that housed several temples dedicated to Horus. What's more, he suffered from modern health problems such as tooth decay and osteoporosis, which means he likely avoided manual labor and had a carbohydrate-rich diet.
We investigated the mummy in two different ways. Firstly, by looking at the hieroglyphic inscriptions on the sarcophagus, which described who Alex was. We also carried out scientific tests using CT scans. These scans showed us the man's tissue.
Aside from Alex, several other Egyptian funerary items are also on show, including a mummified ibis. The bird's origins are no less intriguing than those of the priest.
The museum received this ibis from then Deputy Israeli Prime Minister Yigael Yadin, who in turn received the bird from Egyptian President Anwar Sadat in 1979 with the signing of the Egypt-Israel peace treaty.
The exhibition has drawn a steady stream of the curious, demonstrating how ancient Egypt, and the afterlife in particular, continue to fascinate so many people.
It's interesting to know what the ancient Egyptians ate, what they looked like, and which health issues affected them. And this exhibition answers many of those questions.
In studio, obviously, Maya Margit, the woman who ventured deep into the history of the mummies. Good morning. Next to her, Daniel Roth, deputy editor of this show, for something a little bit later. Maya, sorry. No, I know. First of all, fascinating. But this mummy, Alex, so to speak, other than, a priest, whatnot, what else did they learn about it? And even, did you even inquire? I'm always wondering out loud, that process of mummifying somebody, how does that work?
Well, they have to remove the internal organs. And
that's what I wanted to hear.
Different types of jars. And then they use this different process with salts and special kind of chemicals to dry out the body. And it shrinks. This mummy will look pretty small, but in real life he was much taller, but then it shrinks as the mummification process takes over.
And he was much larger around the waist, is what we understand from this report.
Yeah, he ate very well. He was wealthy. He wasn't from the working class.
As a priest, so that's somebody who, definitely did not have anything to do with physically building the pyramids.
He was not out in the sun, and that's part of the reason he lived to the ripe old age of 40 around, which back then was a ripe old age. Not today, but back then. And
now,
yeah.
Why is Alex, clearly a known and established priest in Egypt, get to Israel?
Well, what happened is there was a Jesuit institute in Egypt that donated the mummy. It's the only mummy in Israel, to another Jesuit institute here in Jerusalem. They basically gave it to them to celebrate the inauguration of the institute in Jerusalem.
Right.
And it was open to the public for decades, but nobody knew about it. Nobody knew it was there. It was in this archaeology museum next to the King David Hotel.
And now it's out in the public in the museum. I mean, just important to note, Alex did not just walk through the desert and want to die in the Holy Land back in the day, right? That wasn't the case.
He did try to cross the Red Sea, but was not successful.
Okay, so essentially, I think we also have to note that it's very important to take away from this: watch your teeth. right? Don't eat that many carbohydrates. The
Watch the
rightful,
carbs,
watch
yeah.
the carbs, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm older
Maybe
than
a little
Alex,
physical
I just
activity.
want to say, exactly, a lot more physical activity. Maya, fabulous, I have to say. And it is in Jerusalem, in the Jerusalem Museum. You're locked in studio because now, of course, is the most important part of the show. This summer, it's a Daniel Roth.